You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact, a colossal waste of time for everyone. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This time we have been watching Data's Day. It was written by Harold Apter and Ronald D. Moore and directed by Robert Weimer. It first aired the week of January 7th, 1991. What happened in this one, you lunkhead?
Data records a podcast about a day in his life for Commander Maddox, that guy who tried to have him taken to pieces in The Measure of a Man. The day revolves around the personal, with Data acting as the father of the bride in the wedding of ship's botanist Keiko Ishikawa and Chief O'Brien, and the professional with an important Vulcan ambassador on board with a secret mission to Romulus, who apparently dies in a transporter accident. Will the wedding go ahead? And was it really an accident? Feel the childlike wonder as you experience all the ups and downs through Data's eyes.
Well, Alex, it's a format breaker, and you've never seen it before. What did you think of it?
Really, it's one long extended, Data, he doesn't understand things. Oh, what a card. Surprising, therefore, that it comes out rather well, I think. Even though there are certainly moments with, as I'm sure we'll get to, a bit of an air of, hey, do you do anything else apart from rollerblading?
So it's epistolary. It's kind of it's a TV format that has been done in other things. Probably usually sitcoms. I think famously MASH, when I said this, James mentioned that before, and it kind of, you'll see examples of this kind of episode, just the point of view episode from a single character who's not necessarily the lead. So it's a story told with a different perspective. So this character is always in, and it makes sense to do it from Data's point of view because Data doesn't have the same perspective as other characters, and it's an insight into the world, and it's an insight that sort of makes you go, how does this android function on a basic level every day and is actually in the flagship of Starfleet? But anyway.
Well, you will find he is fully functional.
It's true. So I guess it kicks off with a bridge scene. It sets it up, voiceover, very Star Trek. Star Trek loves a bit of voiceover. That's what the personal log's all about. We have the night shift on the Enterprise, where the lighting is much better. I mean, is there any reason for the lights to be dimmer just because it's night shift? I mean, everyone's working. Everyone's just doing their job. It's like, you guys don't deserve all of the electricity. We're going to just dim it down a bit. We're going to de-illuminate your panels so you can't really see what you're doing. You're not doing anything important anyway.
Just turn off the air. You don't need that.
It turns out that actually all of Star Trek Discovery is set during the night shift.
And there's actually another really competent crew that works during the day. They just come in the morning like, what is all this mess? What have you been doing?
Turn to one of the members of the crew and go, and who the hell are you? And then all the Discovery cast go, we don't really know either. It wasn't relevant until now. Right, this episode... Oh, she's died. I guess we'll never know.
So we've got this wedding plot, which, again, it feels like it's sort of taken out of a sitcom. We've got this character we've never met before, in Keiko O'Brien, who is Data's friend. This will come up a lot, actually, in future episodes. Data's friend, not unlike Discovery. This person who serves as a plot, Data is father of the bride, because he's that significant. He introduced them to his other friend, Chief O'Brien. Clearly very close friends. And we've kind of got the wedding. The wedding, is it off? Is it on? Who knows? How did you think that slotted into this episode, Alex, as a sort of B plot, which may or may not be the A plot?
You mean the B plot that was there at the start and then pretty much disappeared for quite a long time until someone suddenly mentioned it? Oh Christ, yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it? I was slightly distracted at the start by the fact that my wife turned to me when it was on and went, is this a bit racist? It feels a bit racist. Oh, look, she's not white. So look, she's obviously got a bonsai tree.
To be fair, she's a botanist. I mean, she's doing a lot with trees.
And of course, there was the deleted scene where we see the best man is a leprechaun.
I think the thing with that is, you know, she's obviously getting the cold feet and, oh, the wedding's cancelled, but it's kind of difficult to get psychologically invested because you don't know this relationship. You don't really know the characters. You don't know why she's called off the wedding even. But really, that actually doesn't matter because it's just a way to explore how Data responds badly to given situation. You know, it's classic sitcom stuff. Put them in the situation, see how they respond. Oh, is it slightly unexpected?
I have wonderful news for you. And that's, of course, why his career as a doctor didn't take off.
You will no longer have to worry about breathing.
Dragging us back to the plot for a second. Has Chief O'Brien's fiancée, whose name I genuinely can't remember...
Keiko,
she's going to come up again.
Yeah, has she ever come up before?
No. This is her first appearance.
Because it was set up as if to say, you know this person, and they're talking about the history, and oh, you've been so important. And I'm thinking, have I just forgotten it? I've probably forgotten it. Okay, right, so it wasn't me. Fine.
Actually, this is an episode of firsts, because it's not just Keiko who's the first to appear. It's Spot.
Who?
Spot.
Spot.
You're going to have to refresh my memory.
The ginger cat that lives with Data is called Spot.
Oh, right. Okay, fine.
Okay.
My mind was just flicking through other people that stood out in the episode. I was thinking, do they mean the Blue Barber? Clearly Disney's original casting choice before Will Smith.
That is Mr. Mott, the barber, who will reappear in kind of a different guise at some point. Just like the cat, in fact. They will both change.
Yeah, I did notice that the cat looked wrong.
What, it looked like a dog?
No, look, Spot as a cat is in many episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, and in fact Generations, which I know you've seen, so...
Yeah, but you assume that I remember.
It's the emotional climax to Star Trek Generations.
Data's going through the wreckage, and then he finds Spot.
It had an emotional climax?
When he finds the cat in the wreckage of the ship.
Oh, yeah, I vaguely remember.
Well, that is Spot.
Yes. That is the same cat, but not.
Right.
Honestly, it just made me wonder if Data at some point shaves the cat.
In this particular plot, there's stuff I quite like. I like the Worf scene with choosing a wedding gift. I like that there's a sort of wedding list replicator.
Yeah.
And
not one toaster.
they scroll through the various tat in the catalogue. And it's sort of interesting, though, because we have this world where basically there's no money and like you have replicators, there's no lack of energy, so you want for nothing. Anything you want, you can have. So I guess the gift is, you know, the intrinsic meaning it has in itself, or do you just get all this stuff from your wedding and just put it in a replicator again and go, I don't know what they were thinking, I don't want the weird glass. Because ultimately, if they come round, you can just replicate it again, can't you?
This is a utopian future. And
and yet everyone's still got little bits of shit hanging around the place. Everyone's still got those bloody ornaments that have to be dusted. Oh, a glass swan! How thoughtful. Yes, no, it really did make me think of you.
So gifts aren't something personal, something that like Data playing a song. It's not that at this point. It is in 15 years' time, but. At this point, you just replicate some old piece of crap.
Yeah, but I think in this future it would be, oh, here's the painting I've done. And that's probably worse. I think I'd rather have the glass swan. To get back again, I think I like that with Worf, where Data says, I think of us as kindred spirits, both orphans rescued by Starfleet. Because that's actually, I'd not really thought of that before. Because, they're not really characters that you feel get on or spend a lot of time together or are particularly sociable. You have the poker scenes and stuff like that, but it's, you know, it's always Data and Geordi, and like that's an interesting perspective brought out by this episode.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of good stuff here. You know, we take the piss because, well, frankly, it's our USP at this point. But it works. It doesn't have any right to. Frankly, it's going for the most simplistic angle. That thing I was saying earlier about, oh, well, he doesn't understand. But you're right. By having those little elements in the script, it elevates it to something higher.
That's the thing. This is always on the lists of people's favourite episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's probably in the, if not top 10, it's in the top 20 anyway.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's the first I'm hearing of this.
Hey, I did some research on this and it comes up a lot.
Why?
But because it's funny, I think, and it's nice. It's a character study essentially, and you know, it's not exceptional, but it is a bit different, and it's sort of memorable for that.
Don't get me wrong. It is memorable, it is fun, but they have to stretch Data's character to its limits. They have to Flanderize him in order to make this work.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, but is there a sort of element, though, of self-awareness in the voiceover? Is it actually, you know, he's making himself out to be a bit more naive than perhaps he actually is? Or is that just something I'm saying because I'm on a podcast having to find avenues to mine?
It feels to me just like the writer trying to find another avenue for a joke, essentially. I mean, you get it right up the start with the I'm sure I'll be pleased. It's just trying to sell the joke. I would say that sometimes it perhaps tries to oversell the joke because you're sort of going, although you're not saying what the punchline is, you're sort of alluding to it so heavily that it's a bit of an anticlimax. But I think essentially it feels like it's supposed to be there as a comedy conceit, or at least at times.
Well, I think it kind of is. And if you just take this episode alone and for that purpose, then I think, fine. It's like, you know, Data's the guy who says lunkhead inappropriately. And I guess they go for that kind of thing. They, you know, even up to Generations, you have that, oh, I don't understand tumor, I'm going to push Dr. Crusher in the water, which is so funny. And the rest of the crew just... Yeah,
the difference here is that because you've got that voiceover, essentially what they're doing, and repeatedly, is a bicycle gag. So when he's, for example, going back to Keiko and saying, oh, I think you've misjudged the situation, I think you do need to get married. So you have that setup of, well, last time I spoke to her, she seemed very rational. I'm sure she'll take it well, and then just cutting to it going, what? It's just a bicycle gag. But I would say that we don't normally get that with Data's stuff. It's not normally played in quite that way, and I guess the voiceover's facilitating that.
But it's also because our expectation is totally different from his expectation, because we know in the wedding episode that the bride will be highly strung and stressed out and acting irrationally. But, you know, it's sort of Data's complete lack of knowledge, despite knowing everything, that makes it fun for us. And I guess while we're just talking about this, before we get on to the kind of the enterprisey plot, I guess the other big set piece is the dancing scene.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that shot of Troy.
We'll get to that.
Let's get on to that now, because when I was rewatching the episode last night, I tweeted to both of you, do they always linger with shots of Troy's cleavage? Because it was a very odd framing of the shot. It wasn't just me, was it?
No, it was like that shot of Perry in Planet of Fire, where you have the camera starting, and then it seemed starting on something else entirely, and then gradually working up to the face, but just hanging around for a little while on the tits. You know, just, oh, well, it was just... It's like climbing Snowdon and stopping halfway up for a cup of tea. That probably wasn't the best analogy. I've just realised as I've said it.
You know, they'd have sold a lot more Blu-rays if this episode was on the tester release.
There was a lot of releasing going on. Anyway, Dr. Crusher. Isn't it nice that Dr. Crusher gets something to do? I mean, Gates McFadden famously, or not famously, a choreographer, perhaps most notably for Labyrinth. I say most notably, that's where I know she was a choreographer.
And he's more known for his rapping than his dancing.
Yeah, that's quite a dad joke.
Dads wouldn't know who Labyrinth is. Oh, Christ, I am a dad and I do know who Labyrinth is. That was the weight of age just suddenly catching up with me.
What?
I'm going for a walk in a minute.
Sorry, I kind of lost it. She famously...
You never had it.
Famously worked with Danny John Jules on Labyrinth.
Well, we've all got our cross to bear.
To the great dancers of science fiction. So this is a scene to basically show off that she can dance, he can sort of dance when they cut around it, and it's just funny and silly.
I've not looked at any books or anything else for quotes or behind the scenes information on this, which is going to make quite a rapid flick through during quickfire, I can tell you now. But I'm assuming that somewhere there must be some kind of anecdote about Gates McFadden going into the producer's office and saying, I want more to do, I've got these skills, what about my feet, my dancing feet? Does that exist? Oh, well, can you ride a unicycle as well? You're in! It just feels so conspicuous in this episode. this extended tap dance sequence.
With a character who has never shown any interest in dancing previously. Wait, to be fair...
Doctor, I hear you're a dancer. Pfft, news to us.
It probably would have been Chakotay if it had been Voyager.
It's an issue that Star Trek has, particularly Next Generation and Voyager, where they just suddenly say, oh, did you know that Tom Paris really likes 20th century cars? Oh, and it just so happens we've just encountered a 20th century car in space for some reason.
Did you know that Captain Picard likes a dune buggy? It's so well set up.
Oh my god. Like, after 15 years of establishing the great diplomat and, well, 7 years and then some movies, but, you know, this character is like, oh, he loves his dune buggy, is like, respectful of other cultures. Nah. The episode sort of stops. But I don't care. Like, and then that really, you know, when he has to dance with the hologram and he's just smiling really creepily, and I was laughing incredibly hard at that. Like, it's just funny.
I had a pulled muscle in my neck, which has been killing me, and every time I laugh, it has been really hurting, and my neck was really hurting at that scene.
I mean, let's be honest, if this was in a prior series, so let's say series 2, this probably would, you could imagine that this would still exist, but be done not as a comedy scene, and we'd all be bemoaning the fact that the episode stopped for 5 minutes for an extended dance sequence. It is purely the fact that it's done as a comedy sequence that we can let it pass.
It kind of was done in season 2 with the comedian who's trying to teach Data to be funny.
Oh Christ, I'd forgotten about that.
Very wise.
As I said, you wouldn't get in series 2 them stopping to do some comedy.
They don't have Data go to see Guinan, do they?
I mean, that's a blessed relief, isn't it? You can know exactly how that scene would go.
I used to dance.
Eventually, the wedding does take place, and there's a lovely dress, and there's a wedding, and Data says, you know, he understands the need for love and friendship, and that's nice, and that's kind of that. On again, off again, on again, without whatever the issue is being resolved. I don't care.
And we've had, like you were saying earlier, that moment about Data considering him and Worf kindred spirits and being something that you've never really thought about. We've also got another one of those elements as well, with Data talking about, I had thought that I might settle down and marry, which, again, just not necessarily something that you considered for that character. So it does actually, although primarily a comedic episode, does actually manage to, I would argue, expand the scope of the character a little bit.
You know what would be great? If they did an episode where Data enters a relationship with another member of the crew and they have to live together. Yeah. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
That would probably be quite good. I feel like I just watched that the other night because I did. Do you think, like, given they've got the holodecks and stuff, would people get married on 10 forward?
I think the novelty would wear off with, going to far-flung places that are just brought up by the holodeck.
I'm sick of the Grand Canyon. Let's go back to the sick bay. No, leave the hanging gardens of Babylon alone. Let us return to the storage closet.
I think people are beyond such novelties in the future. It's the perfect future where people just like putting up some vaguely racially insensitive paraphernalia up.
Yeah, well, it seemed like a lovely wedding. It's about the people, not the location, isn't it? And you're trapped with these people at all times, so they're the only people you can invite.
There's no other way of discovering how much people are largely ambivalent to you than trapping them in one building for some 10 hours with only the one meal to sustain them, where everyone's a little too conscious of not wanting to look like the greedy bastard.
It's funny that we're now going to move on to what you initially described, Andrew, as the A plot. Except it's not, is it? It's the B plot of the episode.
Yeah, much like The Loss as well, which has got those sort of things turned around. But here, it's much more motivated. I guess the paradigmatic example is the Zeppo from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which obviously comes after this, but it so much takes the B plot and puts it in the foreground, and the B character. And they've got the end of the world happening as the actual B plot, which is really nice. And this kind of does that as well, and it's not actually as big as the Loss, where you had the whole. Well, I mean, actually, I guess this is the piece of the Alpha Quadrant at stake, but that never is really threatened. It's not the whole crew are going to die, but we have this Vulcan ambassador plot, and it's a bit nothing, isn't it? There's a Vulcan ambassador on board.
I think you do get a hint of a big threat. The Vulcan ambassador, it's very clear that she's not as she seems.
No, she's Sutek from the Pyramids of Mars. All will kneel before Sutek.
Look, this is what Vulcans were since the original series. You got to deal with that. You're lucky she didn't have a little bell.
What? The problem is, with these sort of things, I can never tell if people are just joking or if some dreadful horror is on the horizon.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always something terrible on the horizon, isn't there?
Yeah, episode with a ghost for some reason. That's a rubbish episode.
That is. I mean, it's so far on the horizon, I don't think we'll reach it.
Now we'll have to watch Picard. That'll be much better.
Well, I mean, yeah. More on that later. Yeah, so basically they're going to meet the Romulans to deliver this ambassador. There's sort of hints at potential reunification and that kind of thing. And then she dies on the transporter. And you're like, oh. Ooh. And I guess Data's involvement in this is minimal. The only thing, we get that scene between them where she's basically trying to get information out of him. And all that does is sort of serve to move the plot along in that she's not very trustworthy, I guess.
It is a very strange admission by Data, really. A very self-aware moment almost, where he's describing his own limitations as really as a Starfleet officer, because he doesn't have intuition, so he doesn't go to the captain to say, oh, you know that Vulcan ambassador, well, she was asking me some very strange and dubious questions.
She said she was a Romulan. I thought nothing of it, but...
Yeah.
Well, she said she was a Romulan, but then she said she was just joking, and Vulcans can't lie, so, you know, it's clear.
I think at this point, though, an ambassador, I think the sort of screening protocols and just the general awareness of people in this century is very lacking. I mean, back in the days of Discovery, you had to literally scoop out somebody's insides and to make them pass off as a human. But now you can just be another race, and I know they're related. You can just sort of turn up and they promote you to the highest point of office, and presumably she's done like good work along the way, but sabotaging all along. It just, you know, it's not really. She's built up to be like this great woman, and then it's sort of like, nah, she was a spy. All right. It doesn't get played with enough depth or significance, but that's not to say I don't quite like it as well. It works. It works for the episode as a background mystery, you know, and a mystery to solve, a mystery that I understand. That, you know, a transporter accident. Oh no, they've beamed over some DNA.
My evil plan comes to fruition. I have spent the last 40 years negotiating peace treaties and saving millions upon millions of lives. Now I reveal the horrifying truth. Doesn't really work, does it?
No. Also, it does slightly have the issue that TNG often has, which is when there's a character and, oh, there's a revelation, the character acts so suspiciously beforehand that there's no subtlety about it. It's like a sledgehammer to the testicles. Oh, actually, I've been deceiving you all along. We know. We work that out in about the opening 5 minutes.
To be fair, that is the point here. It is made incredibly obvious because we're concerned about how Data perceives what is happening. Essentially, they cast Data as who they felt the audience were in season 1 and 2 of Next Generation. Naive and don't understand what's going on, even though it's incredibly obvious.
I guess that's the whole setup, though, isn't it? It's to sort of give you nothing to doubt, because here she is Ambassador. Is it T'Pel? It's always a to something, isn't it?
T'Pau.
T'Pau, China in your hand. So yeah, we've got Ambassador.
There's the wedding gift.
China in your hand.
China. Wedding China.
Yeah, I got it.
It was a reach.
It's good. It's good. It's good. So yeah, we've got Ambassador T'Pel. So, you know, she's beyond reproach essentially, and then the twist is she wasn't. She wears big shoulder pads like all the other Romulans, and then it takes you to the brink, the very brink of war. But not really. But we got to see 3 Romulan ships decloaking. That's nice, isn't it?
It feels like we've done this a few times now, this series. You know, pretty much the exact same setup of Captain Picard. If you don't do this, I'm going to do something unpleasant. Oh, but it's not what you think. Oh, but I think it is. Oh, well, we see through you. Oh, well, go away. End. Good.
Well, at least it's the Romulans, and they don't introduce, like, say, a new race like the Cardassians, where they have to do something kind of similar in the next episode. Takes the whole Federation to the brink of war. Look, it's not what's happening, it's how it's executed. And you can explore many things using Chief O'Brien. Like, actually, that plot is kind of from a Data point of view. I guess, you know, you get him applying his deductive reasoning, his sort of Sherlock Holmes skills, but it's a bit... it's a bit like underplayed. I think it's almost a bit not there. It's I mean, is there the doubt that, they've kidnapped her, but then it turns out she's actually a spy? Is that the big twist? But you could sort of I could see that coming. But actually, I think the wedding stuff and the personal stuff and the scenes between the characters and Data's interaction with them, that's the fun stuff. That's the stuff that's far more entertaining.
Though I'm not going to lie, if you'd given me an end of the episode with the wedding where all through the episode people have been feeding Data incorrect information about things to do at a wedding, and he just basically wrecked it, I've quite enjoyed that. Just in the middle of the vows, he starts doing a tap dance down the aisle. Yeah, I'd have gone with that.
Yeah, I can see that, but that is anyone that mean?
They go to cut the cake and he shanks someone. Classic laughs.
Do we eventually see Worf's gift?
I don't know.
It would have been great if you just see him in the background holding that glass swan.
Yeah, that actually would have been a nice punchline. Shame that, isn't it? Oh, hindsight.
Does anyone have anything more to really talk about this? Because I'm aware we've probably not really gone into it in much depth, but it's what it is.
Is there really much depth to this episode?
It's good. It's well executed. It does exactly what it sets out to do.
I'm not criticising it when I say there isn't much depth to it, because it doesn't need to have depth. It's a basic character study, mainly utilising comedy, and it does it far better than as that's previously mentioned, the episode with the comedian.
No-depth character study, mostly using comedy to analyse characters, is a wonderful description for this podcast.
Right, let's talk about some more garbage in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
So, the idea of doing a day in the life plot was first pitched by Harold Apter during the third season, and a lot of viewpoints were considered, but they settled on Data because he's the only one who's up 24 hours a day. But they also wanted a big plot, which is why you get the Romulan thing going on.
I believe it to be one reason that Commander Riker's so popular with the crew. It may also partly be responsible for his success in matters of love. There may be a correlation between humour and sex. Yep, and that's why all of us on this podcast are known as the studs of the Star Trek world.
Oh man, you would not believe the Twitter DMs we get.
Are you releasing a new episode?
I have to unfortunately intervene here and correct an earlier point made by you, Andrew.
Is it about the barber?
It is about the barber, yes.
I know.
You were incredibly racist about Bolians when you said that was Mr. Mott, when in fact it was Vassal.
All look the same to me. Is his name ever stated? Is it not more racist that the Federation exclusively employs Bolians as barbers? They have more to offer.
It just so happens that the Starfleet Hairdressing Academy is on the Bolian homeworld.
Well, you learn something new every day. I'm sure there's a novelization about that.
I'm sure there is a novel about that, yeah.
It's probably one of the new series they're making. So they considered various people getting married, including Picard at one point, which doesn't make any sense, and also a new con officer to replace Wesley, but they thought it would be wrong to have Chief O'Brien be a supporting character when he had so much to offer. Michael Piller said, "I was against that. I felt O'Brien was too good a character and potential benefit to the show to make him another star supporting character. I felt he would always sort of be a sounding board for someone else to talk to, and I didn't want to waste him on that. So we never did get around to replacing Wesley, and O'Brien emerged on his own," which is quite interesting. They were considering another series regular, or as far as I can tell, marrying O'Brien and Picard.
So, turning once again, as usual, to that repository for the rectally retentive, the Star Trek Nitpicker's Guide. given previous form, what part of the episode do you think that Phil Farrand might pick up to just give extra thought to? Any thoughts?
Is it Troy's tits?
It is not. You will be amazed to hear. I, too, am shocked. But the apple doesn't always fall far from the tree. Phil details. This episode qualifies Troy for the Fastest Cross Legs in the Universe award.
I'm sorry.
When Data goes for her...
Is that not something that happens every time Phil walks into a room?
When Data goes to her for advice, the scene opens with her serving herself some tea. Euphemism. Moments later, she sits down. In the very next shot, her legs are instantly crossed. Open brackets, which is always the sign of impending doom. I could make one of several ungentlemanly comments at this juncture, but I believe I will postpone. Close brackets.
He's postponing it, so that's coming up later in the book. Now, I know we've all been wondering what happens to Saylock after the supernova that destroys Romulus in the Star Trek reboot.
I can't sleep at night without it.
Well, Star Trek Online thankfully answered that. She survived.
Oh, thank God. Oh, so apparently, this episode marks the first Night Watch seen on screen, although it does explain the difference in bridge lighting in several previous episodes. Does it? Well, we're done with another episode, which we quite enjoyed. Next time, we'll be talking about the Winded, but until then, goodbye.
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
you lunkheads. Honestly, it just made me wonder if Data at some point shaves the cat.
Are you asking if Data has a shaved pussy?
Oh dear.
Who does that on the Enterprise? Is it Mott?
We're too politically correct, you know.
I mean, to be fair, the jumpsuits are quite figure-hugging.
Anyway.
Maybe they have a futuristic cream that sorts it.
It's not that futuristic, you can buy that now. I hear.
There's probably a setting on the phaser.
We're hearing a phaser charge from Commander Riker's quarters.
I'm going to repeat it because I was particularly pleased with that pun. You mean the shaveser. And with that, I retire for the night.